Hello, this is the voice of Stewart Pearce, and welcome to Deep Dialogues, a series of vital conversations that I have with global soul stewards from all over the world who provide us with an understanding of how we can create a new hierarchy of values that is absolutely significant at this unique time of becoming. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Karen. Is it Karen or Karen?
It's Janet.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Do you know, I have to keep playing this game in my consciousness because in the forefront of my consciousness is Karen. Who is Karen?
No idea. Might
And then
be
I remind myself of Janet. I had to do that when we met, you know, whatever it was, 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. I'm so, please forgive me. So there is this familiar around you. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a moment. So everybody, forgive me. This is the wonderful Janet, wonderful Janet TRELOAR. And have we got something for you? Because Janet is one of these extraordinarily integrous mediums who has really been working on her craft for many, many years, as you will hear. So welcome, everybody, wherever you are in the world, whether you're listening actually as we record or you're listening at some extraordinary point in the future, when I guess we'll still be here on planet Earth. And I hope everybody's lives are, are feeling burnished and abundant, particularly as we ride through the end of this equinoctial period, because it's been an extraordinary week since the 23rd, preceded, of course, by the full moon last week, not this present weekend that's just passed, because we're recording on Monday, September 27th. So let me introduce you. Hi, Ania. Let me introduce you to the gorgeous, looking gorgeous Janet. This is obviously is this somebody that knows you?
Could be. Who knows?
And she's referring to how gorgeous you are. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to this wonderful, wonderful person who was just renamed as Karen. Janet TRELOAR. Janet is an energy channel and a mentor teaching super energy management. Janet was introduced to the supernatural world as a child, as she conversed with spirit regularly, in fact, all the time. And at 12 years of age, she undertook training in energy management, which was actually a quintessential necessity, as you'll hear through all of the journeys that we go through in our conversation. Later, she also developed in mediumship, trance channeling, spiritual healing, and the all-important spirit release before becoming a very well-established regression therapist. As an out-of-body channel, Janet especially understands the importance of energy mastery and energetic well-being. Therefore, Janet focuses her work into sharing the wisdom and the humor of Zach, a non-corporeal being whom she has channeled for some considerable amount of time. Janet regularly offers workshops, sharing her very rare knowledge and skill concerning spiritual development, mediumship, and practitioner mentoring. Janet's website will go fully in front of you, not now, but at the end, because I know you'll get so enticed that you'll start clicking onto her website. And I want your full attention, please. Welcome, Linda, Lynn, Robin, Sarah, Chris, Alison, Rossi, Samantha, Susan. Welcome. Much love to you all. It's wonderful to have you here. Here is the wonderful Janet TRELOAR. I'm so pleased that you're here.
Oh, it's delightful, isn't it? I'm really honoured.
Yeah,
I've been
really.
quite nervous. I should be fine.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Well, I feel that, the non-corporeal aid is surrounding us in this wonderful circle of fire. So I'm sure all of the extraordinary beings that attend to you and make sure that the channel that you have in relation, the conduit you have in relation to Zach, they're all here. I can feel the rippling that's going on around me. And yesterday was embarked on a wonderful pilgrimage called The Saving Grace of Mother Mary, where we went to the 4 sites online with lots and lots and lots of people who came to the pilgrimage. We went through Walsingham, Lourdes, Fatima, and Medjugorje, and the most amazing time, which if anybody wishes to understand more about, it is very easily acquirable. Just email Stewart@StewartPearce.com. Anyway, so Janet, super energy management. When did you really feel the inspiration of, oh yes, that's what it's called, come to you?
Energy management's a bit dry. And I'm not really a very dry person. I did all the training and I followed the script, as it were, of exactly how things were. But I think things have to move with the times. And this, I love the word super. And I like the words that really show what our universe is all about, what we are all about. And it shouldn't really be a chore. I mean, energy management can be made as complex or as simplistic as you like. Intention is the absolute key, and it is my fundamental. It's everything to me. It doesn't mean that I spend hours doing it every day, but I do it every single day. And so it is super energy management. It helps me live a life that I choose to live in energies that I choose to walk in, the world that I choose to walk in, whilst also having a good grounded foot in the reality that we're living here as well. And so, yeah, it's super. I think it's super, don't you?
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. And when we met, because ladies and gentlemen, we Janet and I have had the glory of spending several hours together, exchanging and discovering all the points of coherence between us. And I was very moved and deeply touched on a very genuine soul level when we began speaking over lunch about energy management and super energy management, and your story of where it began to crystallize for you. And may I say, is it okay for me to say that earlier on in life, with the fact that you were literally being bombarded by stimuli from supernatural, from 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dimension, that you were in a spin as a babe, as a young one, and then you were led in the right direction, as spirit always does, to that remarkable lady who took you under her wing. And I think you were around 11 or 12, weren't you?
Absolutely, yes. 11, 12, 13. It was that period of time.
Yeah.
And, well, it saved my life.
Yeah.
I'm not a very dramatic person. It sounds a bit dramatic, but it really was. I mean, I know around then I was really contemplating a suicide. And I say that not really for any big, show. It's just I was going through something that we now recognize as spiritual emergency, where the awakening was to such a bombarded state. And my energy can take it. Nothing else within me could take it. I was completely shattered. And it's really the dark night of the soul. And people experiencing dark night of the soul are looking for an ending of it and a beginning of something else. And that often manifests until you know what you're doing. And at 11, 12, 13, I really didn't, in wanting to die because you don't want to be here, because you're so frightened of everything happening in your world. So, as you say, the universe never leaves us. Spirit never leaves us. They might have been bombarding me from the lowest energies to the highest energies. I was feeling things coming through me and having to get them out, and realizing that, well, my brother and others realized that I was writing snippets from the Quran and other ancient texts, writing in Sanskrit. But at the same time, it could be within minutes I might be conversing with earthbounds of a lot lower vibration, just because they're still in a trauma state, and they would be really petrifying to me. So I needed that help, and thankfully Spirit eventually went, yeah, she's not going to get there on her own, and we really don't want her to popper clogs, and I only didn't really properly think about it because the dimensions, as we discussed when we were talking before, because I know you're a real kindred spirit, you experience a number of similarities, very, very, like you say, there's a lot of synergy there. And going into other dimensions, very dark dimensions, and getting scared that that's where I'd end up. So yeah, my lovely Mrs. Lily, everyone on their hero's journey has to have their own Gandalf or someone who turns up. Mine was Mrs. Lily. I'm so blessed when other people say you were my Mrs. Lily to me. I feel like I'm paying it forward. And yeah, she took me those initial stages, which led to me with the Spiritual Association, getting a lot of help. And as you say, you know, it continues from there. But it took some time. It really took some time to sort my energy out. And even it was years before I really got what I was doing, because I was doing it initially out of fear. These days, and for a long time, you do it out of love. You don't do it out of fear. People think energy protection, energy management, there's this real misnomer. And I don't know whether you find it too. I mean, like I say, this is a deep dialogue. We're not superficial here. You know, there's a lot of people that just immediately will come back and say, oh, but people who do it is only out of fear. And I say it's the absolute reverse. You do it because you love yourself, you respect yourself, and you respect other people. You know, my energy was causing havoc at home. It was causing havoc in the family. How my friends put up with me, I don't know. They must have been. I think we were all like, you know, sort of as if we just had a taser put through us, because I was like, but I was
And so, you know, I just want to expand or amplify on what you're sharing, because it's so radical what you're sharing. Because not just because of the detailing, because of the absolute honesty and breadth that we can feel as you resonate these thoughts and feelings. And I just wanted to, you know, to open up to those people who may be listening, whether in the moment with us now as we record, or indeed in the future, because this wonderful recording will become part of the library, that if you are going through what we've just heard is a spiritual emergency, please reach out to someone whom you know you can trust. You know, Janet is obviously the sort of person that a lot of people go to. I know I've referred several people to her, particularly when they're young women, because of her unique experience as a woman. That people come to me for spiritual emergency, etc., etc. It's okay. It's just that you need to find ways of coordinating the energies so that you know, which is part of what we're going to be, I think, talking about when we talk about super energy management. Because after all, we know that we've just gone through a series of remarkable portals at this time of recording. And the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimension are so open that we're being nibbled at by so many extraordinary supernatural beings, ascended masters and mistresses. But at the same time, if we carry a great deal of darkness within us as a result of our personal circumstances, we can often become affected by a very low entity, very low vibrational entity. And that will, of course, automatically amplify whatever we're experiencing. And that's when we genuinely need to reach out for a life buoy. Wouldn't you agree?
absolutely. You've got to be honest with yourself and know your vulnerabilities. I've sort of worked through most of mine. I trained, as you know, I was a therapist for years and years. And through my training, it was mandatory to work on yourself, whether you thought you needed it or not. And so I worked through an awful lot of it. But I know I still have buttons, like we all do. And so if you're honest with yourself, you know what your vulnerabilities are. You know when to take your foot off the pedal. You know when not to push, but ease back and let the universe help you rather than pushing all the way through it. Completely and totally agree with that.
Yeah. So there's this wonderful understanding that there is a force, a divine intelligence, that is in complete consummation of what all these energies are all about, and that we're just learning, aren't we, in our humanness, of how we can actually reacquaint ourselves or recalibrate ourselves to these high level frequencies. And therefore the divine is always going to be present for us if we can surrender, if we can yield, as Janet is saying. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And you know, wherever we are, on whatever continent we are, there are remarkable people. When the student is ready, the masters come, right? And
Mm.
being in the United Kingdom, I think that you, is this right? That you approached the Spiritual Association of Great Britain, where, is that right, after Mrs. Lilly?
Yes, she took me there because she could only take me so far.
Right.
It's probably changed a bit these
Yeah.
days. And at that time, you know, before the internet, before anything, that was the hub, and it
Yeah.
was in Belgravia, not
Yeah.
far from you. I'm sure you know it very, very well.
Yeah.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's old house, this grand house. And back then, there was this group of little old ladies, you know, the cliche stood, you know, with their blue rinses, all having a little conflab. And I'm sitting there, very Harry Potter style, on this chair with my mum, and then they come out and they announce, the door was sort of swung open, yes, we shall train you. And I didn't know whether it was a good or a bad thing at the time. So there are other places, but I would say, and I'm sure you would probably find this as well, the first step often with something very severe, when it's gone past awakening and you're going into that crisis, you're going into emergency, the first step is to pare back, and I call it normalize, to talk to someone. So this could be a good friend. This could be your aunt. Maybe don't have it always as someone who is your closest, because they will be worried about you. And what you'll actually get is their energy and their worry, and you just get this sort of ball mess. But if you've got someone who knows how to hold their center, not because they are necessarily a sensitive or a psychic, they're just good at holding their center. Maybe it was your old football coach. Whoever it is, approach them and just talk to them, because even the act of talking starts to settle the energy. Your energy is communicating. As you say, we don't sit in what we like to think, because we are physical beings, that we sit in one dimension. Oh, I'm in the 3D today. I've just done a meditation. I'm now in the 5D. We're actually in so many different dimensions all the time. It's what the dominant force is that's communicating with you at that time. So if you are talking to someone very much in the physical world, they are holding space without even realizing. That in itself will really take you along the journey until that point where you can go, and feel where your guides, where your own soul, they are pointing in a direction. There probably is someone like Mrs. Lilly was 2 doors down, or there's someone, you know, that you know, or someone that someone just mentions to you that can help.
Yeah, and when we meet those people, I mean, my Mrs. Lilly was Robin Wimbo, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who was just extraordinary in 1978, when the force that had always been there, but I'd switched off from through adolescence, came pouring back. And I was working as an actor. So a lot of that time in a transformative state as actor, I was out of my body, watching myself on stage. And there was one occasion where I played Hamlet, the Chester Gateway in the city of Chester. And I think it was probably the best thing that I ever did. However, I was out of my body. You know, Hamlet is actually on stage virtually for the whole 4 hours of the play. And I thought, I have to do something about this, which subsequently was many, many years later, when I helped Daniel Day-Lewis, you know, because when he was playing Hamlet at the National Theatre, he saw his own father's ghost, not Hamlet's father's ghost, and because he's an extraordinary sensitive, and freaked out, so he couldn't continue. Disappeared to Ireland, recovered. I helped him through it all, and then he reappeared in film and never went back on the stage. He was able to contain the energy through filming, which is, of course, dimensionally very different when you're in front of, you know, 1,500 people or whatever. So you were talking about groundedness or earthedness, the power of that finding someone who's like a lightning conductor. And I loved what you were saying about a problem shared is a problem halved. It begins to allow us to feel the capacity of the vastness of what we're experiencing and being bombarded by all this stimuli. And then, of course, you know, through all of that journey, through the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain, and for those of you who are in the United Kingdom, of course, there's also the College of Psychic Studies in South Kensington, which is not my alma mater, but it's where I taught for 12 years, I think, before the beginning of this decade, as we record in 21, and that's also, has a very illustrious seat and was founded again by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes books, because of the arousal of spiritualism during the the latter part of the 19th century. And his wife was a very, very famous medium. You would not necessarily refer to yourself as being a medium. You refer to yourself more as a channel.
I'm laughing because you'll get this. You know, when you've done so much training that you've got so many titles that you end up really homing in on just a couple.
Yeah.
Because, I trained first up to their advanced level of mediumship. I then became a spiritual healer alongside that. And I worked voluntarily in their healing clinic in Belgravia for 4 years. That led me on to actually seeking out help with spirit release, with all the energy management. What I was actually doing, I said it was out of fear. I was really putting a block on the stuff, the darker stuff. And it's not dark at all. It's just a different vibration. But I didn't realize that at the time. So that led me on to training with the Spirit Release Foundation. And I became a spirit release practitioner, where I met the wonderful, who I know you know, David Furlong, who I'm still close with now. And he was teaching earth energies. And I was fascinated with that and ley lines and everything else. So then I went into training with earth energies. But all of this, I was still working in the healing clinic, and I was constantly seeing, because I'm really visual. That's how my psyche interprets an awful lot of things. And I was seeing the past lives that were... It's not necessarily the issue, but it's like the thorn that gets stuck in with people who are coming for healing. And I thought it was just my vivid imagination making up these incredible stories. And then someone comes in one day and the book, the old thing, a book had fallen on her head in foils around the corner, and she heard a disembodied voice. She was so excited because she'd never heard any of this stuff, saying, "Give it to Janet." And thankfully I was the only Janet or Karen that she knew. So she gave me this book, which was on past life therapy. Andy Tomlinson, UK amazing pioneer, went to train with him, became a regression therapist, which actually incorporates all the past life, the current life, the life between lives. And I didn't actually realize I was training to be a therapist. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box sometimes. I'm so fascinated in past lives. So I actually came out really understanding the therapeutic and, sort of PTSD and everything else that we were doing. And quite quickly, as I started my practice, I was invited to become a trainer, and I went through all of that training. So then I taught it all for about a decade as well. And included in all of that is, of course, the super energy management. So I refer, when people ask me what I do, I go, because I'm not too sure. So lately I've come out with this energy professional, because I don't really know what else to say. But fundamentally, where my life is at in this world we're in at the moment, in this absolutely super, in every way, energy that we're moving into, this massive expansion, this awareness is channeling, because this energy is helping so many people alongside what I can do as well. But that is really it. So I call myself a channel. I mean, as we know, it's the American terminology for trance medium. I trained as a trance medium. It's just when you used to say that, you felt a little bit like, you were sitting back in the Victorian days, because of how it actually sounded.
Yes. And, that was the complexion that I was sort of processing when I said, "Do you call yourself a medium?" What's beautiful in your exposition is you've given us all these wonderful points of definition, so that for those of you who may be new to this, or you've heard much of what we were actually talking about, but at the same time we're slightly confused about what's a medium, what's a channel, what's this or what's a that, you can see that we have a lady sitting in front of us, so to speak, who is actually a seer par excellence. So she has many different conduits that feed through. If, for example, one of our great mediums of today is Esther Hicks. and the channeling of Abraham. Now, we think of Abraham as being one being, but actually, she's channeling probably about 2,500 entities into this one singular form within her body, which was called Abraham. And she's been preparing, like Janet has, for many lifetimes. And I would suggest that, for example, that Janet is a high priestess from, won't go too far with this, otherwise we get caught up in the whole substance of prior lives. But within the Delphic oracles, there you would have been as an extraordinary witness on a female level, because we know the Temple of Apollo was actually initiated and operated by the female seers, mediums. And so we would go to Janet in that lifetime and say, I've got myself into a pickle. I mean, obviously, you would be a potentate, a sultan, a sultana, a king, an emperor. You would go to her and say, well, there's a little bit of a problem going on here. And she would speak forth as witness to the great world of spirit. There was a question I wanted to ask you. Oh, yes. And I know that earlier we were talking about the really, really crucial aspect of what you're bringing through at the moment, which is teaching or eliciting in people that all of these energies can be maintained, that it's to do with your energy, it's to do with your responsibility, it's to do with you developing a uniqueness in your own sovereignty. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to those degrees.
I sat on the fence a few years ago with maybe how I saw things, because I trained a long time ago and things have changed and moved on. And there was certainly a feeling that maybe some of my opinions may seem a little bit old-fashioned. You know, people were learning all sorts of stuff, you know, on the internet and everywhere else, and they were just opening up all this stuff and everything. And on one hand, that can be great, but, you know, I would be a very rich woman if I had £1 for every single person that came to me and said, my whole life's turned pear-shaped. And the first question I ask anyone that's watching that knows me will go, yeah, she's asked me that. Are you doing your energy management? And pretty much everyone says, no. I had a really good reason to do it. I was on the cusp. I was quite insane. I do know that I was psychotic at that time, because that's actually what happens. And so I had a really good reason for it to turn into a habit and then be with me the whole time. But I would say the way I look at it now, so I was really quite, okay, I'll teach you this. It's going to really help you. You should really do it, and then sit back. I feel these days, if you are on a quest to help others, help yourself, heal yourself, develop, expand, find out the true beauty of this world, it is an essential part of your being. It's, as we were saying before we came on, you know, I'm a great believer now, my energy, my responsibility. If you have someone, however well thought of and admired, who says, I can sort that out for you, I will ground you, I'll protect you, I'll do this, they might be able to do it in the moment. But the way the universe works, and it'd be interesting to see what you think about this, Stewart, but this is my experience, is it will only do it for so long. As soon as it realizes you can do it, which is always quicker than you realize you can do it, it will stop. It will do something to say, come on, you take over. And so I think when we're in those vulnerable situations, you say, you know, if we're ill, we're overwhelmed, something's happened, we're shocked, we're grieved, hand it over to your guides for a while, but be very clear what you want them to do. And as soon as you're ready to take it back, take it back. Take that responsibility. It's the one thing, it's like the give and take in the universe. If you do that, the universe will literally give you the world. But you have to do that step, and you have to do it consistently. You can't say, I would like my energy protection, please, for the next year, and put it in your diary for next year. You have to constantly, the universe is so literal, it is constantly reading your energy. Your energy is communicating with everything constantly. So when your thoughts change towards it, it will change towards you. So you have to reiterate exactly what you want so that you get what you want. I can get off my soapbox now.
No, you're not on the soapbox. It's profound. No, you're not on the soapbox, darling. Absolutely profound what you're sharing with us. And as you often hear me say, I completely cohere. That we have that complementarity. And I guess, I just want to amplify what you've just said, because it's so beautiful what you've just said. It's so significant that through the age of transparency that we're moving through, we know, for example, that in prior times, not so far ago, that the shadow was always suppressed, that the darkness was always suppressed, and we were held together by the adhesion of patriarchal forces that I call tribal warfare. You should, you must, you will do. It is your obligation and your duty to do this. And if you don't, your mother's going to be upset. And if you don't adhere, you can leave home and you're going to be alone. Well, of course, tribals say this because if we start to appear to be different within tribal mechanisms, if we start to be appearing as though we're unique in the tribal construct, that we're claiming our own sovereignty. And so as we go through leaps and bounds of this time of really understanding that we are in co-creation as universal beings, as supernatural beings having a human experience, as spiritual beings having a human experience, we are constantly in co-creation with the universe, with the divine, with the ascended masters and mistresses, with the angels, etc., etc. And so as a result of this vibration of transparency, we're all beginning to realize that we were so codependent on our relationships, and that if we can actually extract ourselves from the issue of till death us do part, recognize that we're all on a journey so that we can co-create together, it means that automatically we become vowed within our solemn solidarity of our own purpose. The uniqueness of our incarnation is to be at one with the divine and at one with one another, but not to give our energy away, not to give our power away. So I feel that, from a sociological point of view, all that we're talking about in essence about the way we address spirit and how our souls give us this intelligence, there are also these sociological features which are really, really crucial. That you're referring to. What was fascinating is that the journey also took you into understanding more about the uniqueness of the incarnations that can pour through us when we become in co-creative union with the spirit world. And you became a regression therapist. How was that triggered within you?
You know how there's opportunities and you can look back in hindsight, the sliding doors, and you can see how some opportunities are your soul, your essence saying, here's a good one. And some you take, some you don't. And there's some that you feel like if you could walk around every single corner and the same thing would be there. You have to do it. And that is how it felt with the past lives. I was going to it really for the past lives. And one of the reasons that I truly see is, how we talk about functioning alcoholics? I think I was like a functioning trauma victim. I was really traumatized from my energetic experiences from when I was a kid. But because I was living this incredibly hedonistic life, as you do in the late 80s, fell out of school, living in London, working in investment banking at 18, 19, out the whole time. And all of that side, because I was functioning, but I was cold. People didn't see it, but inside if someone cried, I think, oh, seriously, what's the problem? Because as we know with trauma, it gets you really, one of the ways it can affect you is you become very, very numb. And so I don't think I would ever have taken myself off to a therapist, especially as I had a mum who even these days, she says, oh, emotions, dear. oh, you don't want to worry about them. That's actually, she said, oh, don't worry about them. So I would never have actually gone, but actually, and that was the thing about it being mandatory, actually, it came along thinking, wow, I'm going to learn a few past lives, wonder if I've been, as we all do, you know, a princess, this, that, and the other. But because we were practicing on each other in, you know, the year and a half of my training, I must have had about 40 regressions myself. And I could start cataloguing even in a linear way. And I can tell you, yeah, there's no princesses in there. Lives of military, service, working, you know, upstairs, downstairs, a lot of that, a lot of lives in Africa and places, a lot of really, you know, sort of close to the earth, which was fascinating to me. And then as we brought in the current life aspects, and like on the last module, when I really had a massive experience of dealing with shame that I hadn't worked out was at the root of all of this, from having a failed exorcism on me when I was 8 years old. You know, I come home from school and there's a vicar, and we never had the vicar. What was that all about? He was trying to exercise me because all this stuff was going on in the house and no one would talk about it. So I think the past lives, it was twofold. And this is where I love the universe, because at the time I couldn't see it, but I can see now. I was following what I needed to do, and they were giving me a gift. They were sorting me out. They were pulling up all of that debris that I was happily stuffing down. And in all that, all the training that I mentioned, I wasn't actually doing any of it for a job. I was actually still working in the city. I was doing everything in secret. It was, again, we're back to shame. I was ashamed of this other side of my life. And it was through that, I sort of just over a cup of tea and a biscuit, chatting to Andy. He said, so what are you going to do with all of this? Because I was so near to qualifying. And I was like, oh, I'm going to leave my job. This is what I'm going to do. And I just did. So it was a real time of massive shift for me. It can be for a lot of other people. People go through their own changes in lots of different ways. And I know I'm harping back to it, but the energy management never changed for me. I think it's the same on day one as it is on day 10,000, in the sense of it might shift and change, but you've got to put in the work. You've got to respect, you've got to put in the practice. That saw through some massive energetic shifts that I went through to heal all of those parts. But you know, I know you're the same, you know, we're a work in progress. I don't expect to be fixed before I pop my clogs. That's when I'll pop my clogs, because we're here for the ride, aren't we? So there's always other things going on. But the big stuff, the stuff that had my blinkers on in life, that didn't allow me to be me, that all got fixed there. And I couldn't be more grateful to them. And it's wonderful seeing the students and everyone else that gets changed by that now.
And so a great part of that was to do with organizing emotional intelligence.
This is the evolution that's happening now, isn't it?
That the inspiration is that feeling is the language of the soul. And so as we develop the unique incarnations that we're having at this time, because we've never been here before in this particular vibrational field, and the very fact that we've just turned the corner and said goodbye to the last 13,000 years of Pisces, and now we're no longer dawning, we're actually in Aquarius. Therefore, the level of photonic light that we're receiving is challenging and changing and recalculating our subatomic particles. I just want to say very quick, can you see the chat box?
I can.
I just want to say there are so many wonderful people who have appeared. Alison, hello. Erica, Pam Gregory, we send you our love. Mwah. Pam Gregory, everybody, is the most extraordinary astrologer. Don't do it now, but later. Go on to, I can easily give you Pam's wonderful website details. She also came into a deep dialogue with me several months ago. Hello, Sue. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Sonia. And Alison, of course. Back to where we were. Oh yes, the one thing I wanted to pick up on what you were saying is that notice that everybody, that Janet has been talking about the multiplicitousness of the storylines that were evoked within her as memories to do with past lives. And we haven't actually touched on this credibility, but I'm sure you'll say, oh yeah. So that's what I feel, that the way that it comes up is to reveal to us the karmic theme for this incarnation. And that although the stories are interesting, as you were saying, am I a king? Am I a princess? Am I a this? Am I a that? That, you know, the number of people that have come to me and said, by the way, you know that I was Nefertiti to your Akhenaten. So it's just, do I really have to go there again? No, I was not Akhenaten. That those stories literally inform us about the nature of what our credibility is within this incarnation, and they show us the pathways, the conduits, the trajectories that we can move on to be the greatest vision of ourselves. Is that how you would embrace it?
Yeah, we go into it and we navigate through the story, but we don't judge at that point, because actually it's what you leave the life with. Like I say, it can be some big stuff that actually you're fine about, but there might be something deep down. Like I mentioned, shame was a real theme and I just couldn't get over it. Something that is wonderful that I would love if my clients and the students took away more than anything is not so much the story, is the oneness that it created. If you have within you, without even realizing, all sorts of prejudices or this, that, color, creed, culture, you know, sort of rich, poor, whatever, dive into those lives, because you've been everything. And when you're everything and you can walk in other people's shoes, it's incredible. But you can see, going back to what you said about the karmic, we are not just individuals. Of course, we're saying this the whole time. So everyone, I believe, that's living right now, their soul, even at a conscious level, they never find out, they have chosen to be here. They will have a unique skill set from their various lives. So I think of it like little projects, side projects. We'll have what our own karma is, what we're not just working through, but learning and experiencing. Our soul is like the bungee jump king, you know, it wants to experience everything. It's when we're here that we go, are you sure about this? But they want to experience everything. So by going through that, but we are having complete collective experiences. What we used to look at maybe, you know, a good few years ago and still do is the ancestral pattern as well as the individual. But I think what's so important right now is the collective and what we are collective going. And because the frequency is so high in the invisible world, our soul is so available to us. We don't need deep states of trance. We don't need what we used to do. And we can pick up on these things. And once we brought it to the surface, if our heart's in it for it to be cleared, changed, transmuted is probably the best way to put it, we can do it. But it's like energy management and everything else. Intention is the key. If you have a regression session, you can have the best regression therapist in the world that does all the work. But if you sabotage it by saying, I just want to know why I'm angry and I shout at people, and you just take from that, it's okay now to be angry and shout at people because I know I've had hard lives, you miss the point. You miss the point of it completely. We have to, take responsibility, but we have to be brave enough to go through that. I think to go through the other side and to let it go and say, this is what's happening now. This is what I'm going to embody. I'm going to be different tomorrow than I was today in a better way.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Because the past lives that we've had are merely stories. The consequence of it all, the quintessential consequence, is actually, as you were saying, what the karmic themes are, which of course come into the forefront of our consciousness in that passing that we refer to as the death experience. And you know, is referred to many, many, many times. We were talking about it yesterday, actually, of the ancient Egyptian Atlantean belief of going into the halls of Ma'at, and our hearts being weighed on the scales of justice with the weight of a feather. And we would have to face the 44 judges and go through a litany of, no, I haven't stolen, no, I haven't. So we became became so aware of what the potentiality of our soul was in its fullness, but also what areas of darkness or corruption or misdemeanor, misalignment was there, and how we would have to hold full responsibility for that as we moved into the next lifetime, which, of course, as we can see, is often, as you were saying, in our next lives configured by scarcity consciousness or traumatic behaviors until we wake up to, wait a minute, I can be the master mistress of my own destiny. What is really going on here? And how can I transform or transmute this negativity into positivism? I think you're an amazing vessel of the potentiality of what this experience is, because as you tell us your story and as you share the uniqueness of your spiritual intelligence with us, we can see how it was quite challenging earlier on in life, because the fabric of your earthly existence rather wasn't necessarily supportive, I'm sure, in relation to the love and in relation to the material nature of your being, but actually was not fully consummately aware of the nature of the inherent technology that we're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. We live and grow constantly,
Yeah.
and I really wasn't then.
Yeah, yeah. So as we look at, our time is ticking on like mad. We could go on for hours, I know. As we look at this particular time, and you review from a macroscopic point of view, are there, I mean, I'm being ridiculous as I say this, and I don't want to sound reductionist, but are there 2 or 3 very specific pointers that you feel are radically clear to you, that we need to be engaging in, we need to be developing, we need to be evolving through right at this time?
Number one, know yourself. Know yourself and accept yourself. That doesn't mean accept and say, this is who I am. Accept and then make things better. But whilst we are denying who we are to ourselves, nothing that we do works. Once we actually do that and we are being seen in the world and we're grounding, I know that's part of energy management, but we're really pushing our rinse out. We're saying we are embodying this life. We can embody so much more of those high vibrations. We are being pelted. Listen to Pam. She will talk to you about it. You know, she knows this stuff that's coming down to us, huge amounts of photonic light. But on top of that, our own, Zach calls it evolution. He's making up his own words. He's going to have his own dictionary soon. He calls it our evolution, which is, as you were referring to it, definitely to do with our emotional intelligence. If you look just a few years ago and how people communicate, how children communicate, you know, on the whole, these days, it is really, really quite something. And we are going through a spiritual evolution of our bodies. I personally don't think we are going to suddenly look like a completely different species, but I think we are having the potential to become something unimaginable, absolutely unimaginable in our health, in our well-being, dealing with toxins, what our planet's like, inventing, creating, finding solutions. But it comes about all about collaboration and coming together. So I would say, number one, know yourself. Spend some time getting to know yourself, like yourself, please. If you can't get to loving yourself yet, like yourself. And then take the very basic steps. I mean, I've got an energy management course. You can find it on my website. And I'm pulling a face. I really shouldn't do that. Like, oh, but what I mean, energy management is not that difficult if you want to go basic. If you haven't come across it before, find out the steps. And as you start to slowly bring them into your life, what you will find is clarity. You'll find clarity, you'll find wholeness, and you will be able, that's when your heart's desires, we're living at a time of heart's desire, not service and martyrdom. Service is heart's desire. A lot of people in service, like me and you and others, that give an awful lot, we do it for the love of it, not because we're martyring ourselves. And that is all of these aspects as we're moving helps us to not resist these changes that are coming. So it's not so much like a 3-step on energy management. It's more about be clear with your intention, have your intention. And when things don't go right, have a look at what else you might be able to do to help yourself, even before anyone else comes in, you know, on their white charger and helps you out.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we're, you know, to embrace all that you've just said and synthesize it, we know that we're going through a time of immense evolution where I believe, I know these categorizations have been given to us before, but I believe fundamentally that we're moving from Homo sapien, Homo sapienus, intelligence, into Homo noeticus, wisdom, which is where the intelligence is fully embodied. And as a result of it being embodied, our cells reveal to us the uniqueness of what we're able to cultivate as spiritual beings having a human journey. As a result of that, we then become homo luminous, so that the eighth chakra produces so much light that it literally pours around us. And I believe that this is what we see in some of the remarkable people that on occasion I've had the great grace and honor of working with, like Diana, for example, who, when we started to work on her eighth chakra, the light, it was like a Roman candle, the light that poured out of her and around her made her appear as though she literally had wings around her. And I believe that fundamentally, I've never seen a human being with wings as an angel. I always remember as a child when I said to my mother, "What are they in a church?" I must have been 5 or 6. And she said, "Oh, darling, they're angels." And I said, "No, they're not." And she said, "Shh, let's sort it out later," because the angels that came to me were always orbs or beams of light. Anyway, that's, you know, that's all perceptually controversial, of course. It all depends on what we're perceiving. However, we're inheriting this very remarkable biochemistry, the potential for the biochemistry that we were living 13,000, 15,000, 20, 25,000 years ago, but from this particular perspective. And that I find absolutely extraordinary, these times that we're living in. What I'm also aware, of course, is we look into the world, we see a world, of course, this has been much documented, but we see a world that is hurly-burly and in chaos. And of course, you know, Pam has already given us lots of information through her astrological monthly forecasts about the nature of the way that we're going to see our supply chains being affected. Well, lo and behold, in the United Kingdom, we are on the brink of not having any gasoline or diesel. And I understand that the central government has decided the troops will come in because there are, you know, 5-mile queues in front of any gas station to try and get gasoline. They're all running out. And this is to do with the supply chain being affected. The same thing is going to happen with our food chain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anything that you can speak to about how we can super energy manage our time as we go through these societal periods of great change?
Think a lot about discernment. So much of the information, it shows the power of the media. It really does. Everything that's happened over the last couple of years, whether people perceive that as good, bad, indifferent, whatever, it's about just following what everyone else is doing. But if you have discernment, and again, your energy, you know, I know we haven't got time about it now, but there's a difference between the gut reaction and you feeling something in your solar plexus to feeling it in your heart as well. And your gut is survival, but it will be affected by other things like fear and other such things. Whereas your heart always knows the truth of everything. So much that we are seeing at this time, I mean, it's not always absolutely 100% because we're not always absolutely 100%. But as we see these different things, we can experience it. We can put our focus, we can put our energy into where we want it to be, ideally into lighter, brighter ways of being, not to ignore or say, oh, that's for other people. We've got a massive polarization coming on. And Zach has said it has to become very polarized to actually come together. You have to go to the extremes first for that to come together. So it's listening to your heart. I mean, I'll give a little plug for Zach because he introduced himself 10 years ago as a guide for the future when I was channeling. And we've worked with him. He's such an amazing being ever since. And he's, oh God, he's so lovely. People just love him. He is just sweet, he's funny, but he really gets what it is to be human. He's non-political, he's non-judgmental, but he is seeing and he's putting all of these things together. So I know I've got, like, we've got a Patreon site, patreon.com/Zach's portal, and on there we do monthly Zach chats where people bring in questions timely, but there's membership, small membership for deep dives where he's like a cosmic classroom and he does these amazing meditations. I personally, so I channel these meditations from him, and then I use them myself throughout the month as well, because they're so on point of where we can be shifting and moving to align ourselves. So you're sort of slightly ahead of time in a way. So when this stuff happens, just like you saw then, just, I think you put it so well, because you could see it coming. And so you could see when they're saying this, it's not a shock like it is for a lot of people. So these are some of the ways, and people will find lots and lots of different ways. That's my way of doing it. And really just feeling into what feels right for me right now. No truth is fluid. Know that you might change. Know your ideas, your opinions, your perspective might change, and just go, yeah, if they do, rather than, I could berate the 20-year-old me or the 30-year-old me or the 10-year-old me, but it's just who I was at the time.
And we love it all. We love it all. The choices that were being made, the way that you were living your biochemistry, we love it all. I didn't know that Zach did a monthly clinic.
Yes.
Looking point. And I just want to emphasize or amplify what you're sharing with us on that level. And I would love to listen in, become part of, because Zach is viewing from this macroscopic multidimensional level. It's like, for example, because I've had the privilege and the honor of being in the presence of Zach when Janet opened herself, when I now know who Karen is, by the way. when Janet very kindly opened herself to the channeling of Zach, and of course it reminded me of the days when the angels first were working with me, and I worked purely mediumistically. So I spent most of the time out of my body examining what they were, and then I came crashing back in. I think this is about 22 years ago, and they said, "Would you stop doing that?" And that's when soul readings started, so that I can actually bring through their information in the way that I do it today. However, that being in connection with this macroscopic perspective that has this immense intelligence reviewing the human condition, I would recommend to all of you, this is something you need to do, and that what Janet's offering is very unique because it's integrous, because she is so integrated, as you can hear. She's been through an extraordinary journey, and therefore the fact that she crystallizes all of her information through the filter of her heart, the seat of the soul. The heart always knows, as she said. So, are you heart dowsing, you guys? Are you really feeling, are you making your primary choices? And start off with the rudimentary choices. Heart dows. And then when you get to the bigger choices, shall I leave this relationship? Shall I resign from this job? How am I going to heal this cancer? Then those bigger choices, the dowsing of your heart, will be able to be so perspicacious, so mentally penetrating, that you'll have the most extraordinary time. Lots and lots of people chatting in. We've got a huge witness here this evening, which is wonderful. I mean, forgive me, it's evening in the United Kingdom, but afternoon on the eastern seaboard, and of course, just morning in the wonder of the Pacific coastline for those of you in North America. We have 1 minute left, and I was going to say, wow, why don't we ask Zach to come through? But we only have 1 minute, and that would be ridiculous.
I'll still be tuning in.
What's wonderful is that it's actually in organizing deep dialogues. I contact very, very extraordinary people. A lot of them don't get back to me. And so it's always very interesting noticing how this particular season of 12 Deep Dialogues is going to be all ladies. And what we have started to do is to go deep into the interface between the natural habitat of our beings as physical human and the supernatural world. So what I'm about to say to you is, please, will you come back?
Oh, please.
Please, will you come back in a month's time or 5 weeks' time so that we can actually pick up where we've left off? And also maybe there's an opportunity for...
Yeah, we could bring in Zach, but also we haven't even shared with them the story how I was using your cards, or should I say Zach was, at one of his massive channeling extravaganzas. He chose yours for a theme of Atlantis. So I'm sure he would love to chat directly to you and through to everyone else. So yes, yeah, I am yours for the taking, my love.
Oh,
Please do.
Bless you. So, ladies and gentlemen who are tuning in, hi, those people who have come that I haven't spoken your names: Joyous, Linda, Ariona, is it? Forgive me if my pronunciation is not correct. Alison, Matida, Samantha, J. O. Towner. That's wonderful. D. Suksana, Robin, I've said hello to Amenti, the Awakener. Ooh, we have Naomi, Sabine, Liliana, Antonia, Chris, all of you, Annie, there's so many of you, Sonia, Sharon, so many of you. Welcome, welcome. And I'm so sorry, but we have been blessed in this past hour with this grace-filled lady who also is iridescent with all of this extraordinary information. And I promise you, because she's just committed herself to it, she's coming back. So thank you, my darling. It's been an absolute wonder being with you in this context. And thank you, all of you, for listening in. And Ryan will be putting up, my tech manager, that is, Janet's wonderful detailing for her 2 websites. So you can go on immediately and find out exactly. There we are. The first website is planet-therapies.com. Thank you, Ryan. And there's the second. So scribble them down. Patreon.com/Sax Portal. ZACSPORTAL. Bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay where you are. Please like and subscribe. Click, click, click. Look at all those wonderful... Oh, everybody, don't forget, go to my Illumination series. Monthly energy forecasts from the Angels of Atlantis. Bless you, bless you. That was wonderful. Thank you, Ryan.